Right, let's get this show on the road and prepare yourselves for some earth-shattering revelations. Revelations are supposed to change your mindset, to make you see things in completely new, fresh, true light. But I have to warn you, the more you know, the more revelations you receive about the true situation, the more you'll despair. That is why it is extremely important to believe in the statement, in the truism. But God Almighty intervened. He always intervenes. Now, it pleased Almighty God that I lived through Kenya's second liberation. Indeed, I lived through this critical time in Kenyan history under the tutelage of my political lecturer. I was very young, but I was soaking in information and what was going on around me better than a sponge. And that is what makes many people wonder today, kwani how old is Kumekucha? Yeah, he seemed to have been there in the 50s, in the 60s, and even today. Well, today you know the answer to that question. Yeah, I've just given it to you. The 50s, 60s, and 70s were covered in great detail by my political lecturer, even as I lived through the 80s and 90s, sucking in information, not knowing that it was God's plan for me to be there in the 2010s and 2020s, releasing that information with a historical perspective. For anybody to understand what is really going on today between the judiciary and the executive, it is critical for us to look at something that unfolded during the Moi presidency that very few paid attention to. You see, as a country, we had reached that moment of yote yawezekana bila Moi. You know, there's a very smart commentator on this channel in the last video who said that the current regime had better be very careful not to push Kenyans to that moment of the 90s of yote yawezekana bila jijazie. Or let me make it clear, yote yawezekana bila Uhuru, Ruto na Raila. Now, during the Moi days, when you're fighting one common enemy, you tend to accept all people who want to support your cause without questioning their past or their agenda, the individual selfish agenda. Because all you want is to remove Moi from power. Yesterday, not even today or tomorrow, you want him gone yesterday. You never stop to ask yourself a few simple questions. Who is funding civil society? And what do they really want? Because people don't put money somewhere for others to benefit. The interest is usually selfish. Just be patient with me. We'll come to what is happening currently. That will shock you to your bones. And that is why those of us who are a bit more alert than our other brothers and sisters were shocked when we saw that the people who were singing the song, yote yawezekana bila Moi, yote yawezekana bila Moi. Who were the people leading this chorus? Professor George Saitoti, Kalonzo Musyoka, Moody Awori, Henry Kosgei. These people are standing right next to Mwai Kibaki, Raila Odinga, Kijana Wamalwa, Gitobu Imanyara, James Orengo, and many of the other champions, heroes and heroines of the second liberation. Bottom line, wolves in sheep's clothing were mixing with the sheep, singing yote yawezekana bila Moi. It blows my mind, just thinking how we ever expected any change, and yet the same characters were at the forefront at the last minute, of course, when victory was in sight for the second liberation. In other words, they hijacked the second liberation. I will make a confession. I was naive enough to believe that these people would change with the new wave of change coming to Kenya. Now, shortly after Kenya gained her independence, the judiciary was captured by the executive. And that is why the emphasis of our 2010 constitution was on independence of the judiciary, especially from the executive. And so the question now is, who captured the judiciary after the executive was pushed aside? Now hold on to that question for a second or a minute. We'll come back to it. We are all keenly aware of the battle, the raging battle, between the executive and the judiciary, which is conclusive evidence that the judiciary is no longer controlled by the executive, because there can be no war, there can be no contest if you are already under the control of your opponent. We also know that the government is a serial offender when it comes to ignoring court orders, rubbishing court orders, reducing court orders to useless pieces of paper. Now, years ago when I was entering the journalism profession, the first thing we were taught, one of the first things we were taught, was that every story has two sides. Every single story, without fail. Even the serial murderer who did his thing in front of multiple witnesses, where there's even conclusive evidence, even that story has another side. And that side is usually how that serial killer grew up. Harassed by grown-ups, harassed by the mother, etc., etc. And all these psychological problems for this serial killer started a long time ago, leading to the current event. That is another side of the same story that may appear to be sympathetic to somebody who deserves no sympathy. Bottom line, there are always two sides to a story. So let's listen to what the government has to say about ignoring court orders. Fred Matiang'i, the cabinet minister in charge of Interior, once complained that the judiciary has lost track. Why? Because one person can walk into court and gain multiple court orders within minutes. They walk into a building, walk out with a handful of court orders. Pop! Now, even if you know nothing about the legal profession and nothing about the judiciary, you have to get suspicious that there's something wrong here. How can that happen? Yes, you're against the executive. Yes, you hate the executive. But hey, this can't be normal. There is something very wrong somewhere. An independent judiciary does not mean a judiciary that fights the executive. It does not mean a judiciary that favors those who fight for the executive. And neither does it mean a judiciary that favors the executive. What it means is an independent judiciary. You know you can ignore the spirit of a certain law and bend it to suit your selfish purposes. It happens all the time, all over the world. And this is one of the reasons why we have to keep on passing new laws all the time. Many of them are to emphasize the spirit of laws that were passed a long time ago. Bottom line, if you look at the Kenyan situation carefully, you'll realize that the judiciary is playing exactly the same games the executive is playing with the law, with the constitution. So, who has captured the judiciary so that they're behaving in this manner? And I'm not making any excuses for anybody. The government must follow court orders. Because when they ignore court orders, they're telling the rest of us to do the same. But who captured the judiciary? Who? Now again, we'll come back to that in a minute. The landmark ruling of the Supreme Court in 2017, putting aside the election of President Uhuru Kenyatta as president, is an interesting case study for our topic today. Very interesting and very revealing. Going into that ruling, Chief Justice David Maraga must have known that there were certain political forces within the judiciary that were keen on influencing the ruling of the Supreme Court. But he was determined to make a ruling in fidelity to the Kenyan Constitution. Remember, the Chief Justice cannot be a micromanager of the entire judiciary. All they can do is to influence the direction of the judiciary. And usually they're not successful because of the many other outside forces at play. Now, very interesting, the ruling of the Supreme Court leaked out before it was made public. Now, how can that even happen? The only way it can happen is if one or more members of the Supreme Court have been compromised, are acting at the behest of outside powerful sources. By the way, in 2013, exactly the same thing happened. Now, this tells us something very revealing. It tells us that the judiciary has been captured, but not by one particular force, external. No, by more than one, maybe several. In other words, we can say there is a power struggle between external forces over control on the judiciary. And of course, one of those external forces is still the executive. And that's how the ruling of the 2013 and 2017 presidential election petition leaked out before it was made public. It leaked out when only the judges of the Supreme Court knew what the ruling was. Bottom line, the judiciary is not independent. Indeed, in my opinion, it is less independent than it has ever been. Because when you have only the executive calling the shots, that judiciary is independent when the executive is not involved directly in a case. Bottom line, The judiciary may have endeared itself to the ordinary Kenyan because it appears to be fighting the cause of the ordinary Kenyan. But it is not independent and therefore cannot fight effectively, truly, for the cause of the common Kenyan. Because when another powerful outside influence comes in against the ordinary Kenyan, you can guess who is going to lose. The ordinary, long-suffering Kenyan. So, who are these powerful external forces fighting for the control of the judiciary? Number one, we've already mentioned, the executive. Number two, foreign powers. Pay careful attention to the countries sponsoring various initiatives within the judiciary. Yeah, most notably, the United States. Number three, William Samoei Ruto and Team Tangatanga. Number four, Raila Odinga and ODM. Number five, retired, respected judges, who can still be influenced with 12 pieces of silver to do virtually anything or to push for virtually anything within the judiciary. Number six, some very wealthy old Kenyan families who are very influential within the judiciary. And take note of the fact that the last two can also be influenced by foreign powers to push through certain things within the judiciary. Things contrary to the spirit of our Constitution. Folks, when this revelation sinks in, you will understand that Kenya, the country called Kenya, is rotten to the core. Now, if you're not already throwing up, please remember to like this video. And if you're already not throwing up, not already sick to the pit of your stomach, you can get many other eye-opening revelations proving that indeed we are rotten to the core in my weekly intelligence briefings. Please take a moment to take in the following earlier recording that tells you a little more about what you can find in my WIBs. Thanks in advance for your time. While I try my very best to give you real value on this public channel and to give you all the valuable information I can, the truth is there's some information that is way too sensitive to share on this public channel. That information usually ends up in my weekly intelligence briefings, which is usually moto kama pasi. Just to give you a few examples, what really happened to former President of Tanzania, Dr. John Pombe Magufuli? Is it true that he passed on at a Nairobi hospital? Actually, the Magufuli inside story is nothing short of mind-boggling. Most people who have taken in my WIB number 52, which contains this information, have been left breathless. Even the most hardened cynics have been left bila words, if I can put it in the Kenyan way. Another example of a WIB that I published recently. There is a secret that those who are close to Raila Odinga have guarded and continue to guard with everything they have. Why is this particular secret so sensitive? And what is it anyway? It is contained in one of my WIBs. In fact, a recent one. And there's much more, including things you'd never imagine that are happening in the corridors of power that neatly explain what we see unfolding in the public domain. Bottom line, you will never look at Kenyan politics in the same way again after you become a WIB subscriber. Indeed, it is true to say that in most instances, the truth is stranger than fiction, and sometimes much more difficult to believe than fiction. But it remains the naked truth. And now you have a golden opportunity of becoming a weekly intelligence briefing subscriber on a monthly basis, which will automatically give you access to every single WIB ever produced. Oh yes, I will send you all the WIBs immediately you become a subscriber. And to become a monthly subscriber, all you need is $9.95 only, or Kenya shillings 995 only. Simply send a blank email to the email address you see on your screens right now, and you'll get an automated response via email instantly, within seconds, with full payment instructions and what you need to do. The same full payment instructions are also included in the description area below this video on YouTube. I strongly recommend that you go for it, because this offer will not last for much longer. I really look forward to seeing you on the other side as a WIB subscriber. Thanks so much for your support. It means a lot to me. And I'm saying that very sincerely from the bottom of my heart. I look forward to seeing you on the other side as a WIB subscriber. Until next time, this is Kshs. Kumekucha.